Provo Beast here doing another install today. Today we're wiring in an amplifier on a 2016 Ford F150. In this video we're going to show you how to run the amplifier power wire, the ground wire, the RCA cables, and integrate with the factory Ford Sync system. This install will be multiple parts, but this video specifically will be how to install the amplifier. Additionally, in other videos, we're going to do door speakers, the front two door speakers, so go ahead and check that out. A couple unboxings with the equipment that we'll be using, and basically show you how to run all the cabling needed for this amplifier. Now today we're doing a 5-channel amplifier, Pioneer 10-inch sub, new front door speakers, and all the wiring to retain the factory Ford Sync. Alright, so we're getting ready to run the power wire from the battery area through the firewall into the cabin, back to the rear of the vehicle, of the truck here. Now, if you pull off the fuse box cover here, it gives you a little bit more access. And what I've done, see if I can get a little light for you, I have used a razor blade and just cut a little hole in that grommet. Now you may notice there's kind of a spot a little bit lower that you can cut and get into, kind of right there. But I mean, totally up to you. I don't have as big of a wire or a lot to run through, so I just made my own little hole, and I pushed the hanger through, and there is the wire on the other end right there. So it's kind of blurry for you. There you go. So I'm going to pull the wire through. Now what I'm going to do is attach my wire to the end of this hanger so I can pull it on through. I'll probably put a little WD-40 there so it's slick, and that'll help us gain firewall access. Alright, so what I've done here is I've connected the 4-gauge wire to the hanger. Just use electrical tape. Use a little bit of WD-40 to kind of lubricate that opening there. And I pulled that wire on through, and as you can see here, it came right down there. It's out of the way of all the wiring. What we're going to do from here, and as you notice, I popped this down just so I had a little bit more space. But we're going to, underneath all the panels, start running wiring. We're going to work our way back right along the back panel, and with our other components, we're going to be back in this little bit area. So that's where we're going to run our wire. Okay, so I just mounted our fuse holder right there on the side. It's out of the way of everything, out of the way of the fuse box cover. And just ran the positive. It'll go right here to the stud as soon as we're ready. All right, so we've removed this kind of kick panel area, just held on with clips, and same with the fuse panel cover. And then as you can see here, we're going to run this wire along the kick panel. All right, just continue that wire along. Tucked it up through here. And then we've just tucked it way back down underneath. As you can see, and it came out right there. That's about where the amp's going to be. Okay, here we are on this side of the truck. We've run our power wire just up underneath the sound deadening mat, or the carpet here. And it's come out here, and it's about perfect length because our amp's going to go right here under the seat in the little pocket. Here's a good factory ground location. It's on the frame of the truck. It's just not in the sheet metal. Now you can go to a bolt down here if you choose to do so. I'm going to go ahead and use that because our amp's going to be just right below it. We're going to take that factory ground out, actually clean the paint off, so we have a great connection. Nice thing about this, it's all threaded. It's a good spot for the ground for our amp. So we're going to go ahead and wire that in. All right, so we went ahead and cleaned the paint off really well with a wire brush. We used this grounding location because it's a nice nut and bolt. Put our ground there, and our ground wire comes right out there at the bottom, which will go right into the amplifier. All right, what we need to do is gain an output signal from our factory radio. This is the Sync radio, commonly now found in all Fords. Basically, we need an output signal that goes to an LC7i. Basically, it's our LAN out converter, our digital converter that we'll have in the back. We need a signal from the radio to that, which converts it to an RCA plug, which our amp can read. And so at this point, we need to get back behind the radio. Now what we need to do here is actually pop this out so we can get to the screws on the top. This pops out. Again, it's just 4 clips. You're gonna see our 2 screws here, which will kind of get this out of the way. And then up here on the top, we have 2 screws that we need to remove so we can begin pulling the panel out. Okay, so remove those 2 back screws. As you can see, I also exposed the 7th speaker, but there's the 2 screws on each side. The rest are held on with clips. Once that's out of the way, you have the 2 same screws, and I'm using a 9/16. Find a bit that maybe fits a little bit better, but it works for me. And then here, you'll kind of give it a good tug, work this on back, and they're all held on with clips all the way down here, as you can see. Go ahead and remove the harnesses. At this point, it'd be very smart to remove the negative off the battery, just so you don't screw any electrical components up. And then once this is out of the way, we can get to the wiring behind the radio, and that's what we will use for our signal wire, for our speaker output, everything that we'll need for our line out converter. All right, so I removed the negative off the battery, removed these 2 top harnesses, and our dash bezel will just kind of hang off to the side. You can totally disconnect it if you want. We got to get into our main radio so we can get back to the main harnesses. All right, so I went ahead and removed that radio and removed this harness. Now, as you notice, I've already cut wires. I pulled the insulation back, and there are 4 pairs of wires, which are your 4 speaker wires. Basically, with these wires, I'll post in the description which each one goes to. This is going to be our output, and this is going to go to our line out converter, these 4 pairs. And then through the line out converter to the amp, and then the amp powered signal to go back to the speakers. We're actually going to tap right back into these, and this will go to our doors. This is just so we don't have to tear apart the doors, run new wire, and so forth. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So this is the output. This goes to our amp, and then this is the input back to the speakers. All right, so in preparation, I've got a lot of speaker wire going here. Let me kind of show you what we have. Now I have 5 sets, and each set has 4 insulated wires, and it's 16 gauge each wire. So let me kind of explain my thinking behind this. 2 sets, which is basically 8 wires, will be our signal. And from the output of the radio, since we've cut it in the previous segment, we'll wire 2 sets in, or all these 8 wires, which will carry our signal from our radio to our line out converter, which are using the LC7. So they'll go into these inputs. Obviously we have a channel 3, but we'll bridge into channel 2 just so it has that for our sub. So these from the radio, the other end, will connect into our inputs on our LC7. Then our 3 sets of channels, 1, 2, and 3, will go to our amplifier. And then our amplifier speaker output will go to the other 3 from our amplifier output. Will go through our speaker wire all the way back up to this portion of the stereo. And this guy, these are also 16 gauge wires, and these will go to our doors. All right, so that wire fed through right there. Remember, 2 strands is my signal wire to my amp, and then 3 strands are from the output of the amp back up here that will use the harness. We're gonna go up underneath. I still got a zip tie up so it doesn't fall down. This is our bass knob and a remote turn-on wire. Again, it got a zip tie up so it does not get in the way. But it comes down here, just like the other side of the car, and our power wire. On this side, I've taken apart the little door, the panels. Again, all held on with clips. Started running all my speaker wire and signal wire, bass knob wire, and a remote turn-on wire out this side. And we're gonna work our way up, go through here, this little panel, come out the back, and we're gonna come out about that little spot. So I've already put the panel back together, but I ran all our speaker wire, signal wire, remote turn-on wire, and bass knob cable wire through there. It comes up here, and again, I just fed it behind the panel. I didn't have to remove the panel. Zip tied along there, put a nice little anchor there, and it'll go down and go into our line out converter and our amplifier. So that's all good to go. All right, so what we've done here is we've started hooking up wiring. Now, how to make a little table. There's kind of a lot going on with 5 sets of 4-set speaker wire. So, let me kind of walk you through my wiring diagram here. And I'll put this down in the comments so it's a little bit easier for you. But I have 5 sets of white wires, as you can see here. Set number 1 has no tape, and that's my signal for my front speakers. No tape, which is right there. So that's my front signal from the radio as the signal to the amp. And number 2 is 1 tape. And that's the signal to the rear, which is right here. Number 3 is 2 tapes, and that's the output. So that's to the door speakers from the amp, and that's 2 tapes, and that's right here. Now, as you notice, that goes into the wiring harness. And then 3 tapes is number 4, and that's output door speakers for the rear. And that's 3 tapes, and that's right here. So as you can see, from when this is plugged in, this is our signal, goes to our processor, goes to our amp, and then from the amp is these other 2, which go back into the harness, which go to the door speakers. That's how we got that all hooked up. Looks like a lot, kind of is. Now our 5th one is for our tweeters. Now obviously we don't have a tweeter hookup here. I'll extend these wires, and our tweeters are in the A-pillars, which we're going to replace there. So we'll have to run those manually, and that's just fine. And here I've got them marked, so I know which one goes where. All right, here's another update from you. So this is our speaker wire from the front. Now remember, there's 2 sets of signal wire. There are 2 white signal wires, and then 3 speaker output wires. Now the 2 white signal wires, strip both ends, went into our LC7. So this is our front channel, front left, front right. This is rear left, rear right. On this side, I've got the positive and the ground, the remote and the remote out. So positive, I just jumped into our positive. Negative, I jumped into our negative, as you can see there. Remote turn on wire goes in there. So the remote in is from the front. The remote out is going from there into that centerpiece, and that's what turns on the amp. So hopefully that all makes sense here. Now our speaker output, which go to our speakers. This guy here, this one is our rear speakers, our rear door speakers. So that goes all the way up to the main harness, and then from the main harness to the doors. And then these wires here, this plugs into our front door output, which go into our crossover input. And then our output goes to our door speakers and our tweeter speakers. A lot of wiring here. And if you're not following along, I don't blame you. It's all good. Okay, so at this point, we got to put our RCAs to our amp. And then just get our amp all mounted. All right, so I got everything plugged in. Power and ground, remote turn on wire, our sub, rear speakers, and front door speaker outputs, RCAs from our line out converter, and our bass knob wire. Amp is all hooked up. Now we're just gonna kind of get everything fitted in this spot. All right, from this amp output, we got our sub all hooked up. It's ready to go. Now, of course, that's not the sub we're going with, but at least for now, we can go ahead and give it a test. We're gonna be putting in this Pioneer little 10-inch. But at least for now, it's all in. We're gonna go ahead and get everything buttoned up here. All right, got everything in. Looks super clean. This is our sub speaker wire. There's our crossovers. Basically good to go. We still got to tune the amp, but it's basically all hooked up back here. Now we got to go get the front end all put together. All right, we got all the wires cleaned up behind the seats, so when we're ready to build a box there, we can. Super clean. All right, we went ahead and connected the positive on the battery, and we did that when the negative was off. Once the positive was back on, put the negative back on, everything's tight, cleaned up under the hood, ready to go. The engine bay is done. All right, so for the remote turn on wire for our amp, this top fuse is a 10 amp fuse. It's to our inverter, but it's only on when the truck is on. And so that's a great fuse to use. You can use an ADA circuit, you can use a piggyback little spade fuse, or you can put the wire in there. Just be super careful. I usually put it behind the fuse, so the wire itself is also fused, if that makes sense. But here at the kick panel, we're good to go. We can get that put back together. All right, so I got everything put back together. I got the radio back, the actual CD disc radio area back in, all bolted back up. Got our screen, everything, the trim piece around that, got all the bolts back in. We haven't got the top on quite yet, but here's a little test for you. A lot of power there from that Alpine amp, so good to go there. Next thing here is we're gonna finish up the top. We're gonna make sure we put in our 2 screws, and that's about it for this install. Like I said, go ahead and check out my front door speaker install. That'll be on the channel here shortly. Thanks again for watching the channel. We appreciate you guys and all your support, and we will see you in the next video.